Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself giant snowflakes. In case you ever wanted a nice easy way to festivize your skies, well, this is the video for you. So let's investigate how we'd go about this for the 9th day of Gearsaw. And our palette is going to be quite simple. Get yourself some blues and maybe even some purples, and then get either of these two lighting blocks. You either need pearlescent frog lights, so warm frog lights, or sea lanterns. You could do it with other ones, but those are the best. Then, make sure you have a large area to do this. Do you have a sky? Fantastic. Do it there. Don't have a sky? Do you have a ceiling? Alright, do it there. Have neither a sky or a ceiling? Well, either you're playing Terraria or you're not in Minecraft, so, either one of those. And then, what you want to do is tower up and place your lighting block. This is pretty simple, because of course, towering is relatively easy in this game, so you go like this. And then, once you get high enough, I'd say about 75 blocks up, then place your sea lantern if it's blue, or a pearlescent frog light if it's purple or magenta. And up here, we should be high enough, and now we have a sea lantern. Destroy every block except the sea lantern as we ideate how we're going to shape this. Here, we have ourselves various sea lanterns and pearlescent frog lights in the sky. And of course, it's much better to do this at night, since you can see them a lot easier. During the day, it's quite hard. So I'm going to be recording the majority of this at night. And then from here, what you need to do is determine which one's pearlescent and which one's sea lantern. Because of course, pearlescent goes best with purple colors, while sea lanterns go with blue colors. Once you've determined that, then you can start making various designs off of each sea lantern. Build large platforms below them in case you want to make changes. And remember, this is Minecraft. Don't bother with 6-sided, go straight for 8-sided. And of course, this is very basic snowflake right here, but it gets the idea across. Essentially, you want to build some basic designs around each snowflake before moving on to complex ones. Perhaps practice in creative mode due to the high up nature of this build. With our very basic snowflake up here, we're now ready to add more interesting ones. Down here, I've incorporated 2 new designs onto that one while upscaling it a little bit. Essentially, I made each little beam separate into 2 separate ones before merging back together, and then I added extra blocks to the tips of these ones. By doing this, you've now created what appears to be a completely new snowflake, even though you changed almost nothing. If you take it to the extreme and upscale every piece and add a couple extra ones, then you get this. And you might think, wow, this is spectacular. Well, it has a very glaring mistake in it. The fact that, look, you can barely see it over here. You can only make out its shape because all the extra lighting I had to add to the end. Speaking of which, if you remove it, you might notice things a little lame. So make sure to have your lighting in order to draw the viewer's eye. So, how do you solve whatever issue you have with contrast? Simple. Don't build blue ones directly over ice, and don't build white ones directly over snow. And if for some reason you're building green ones, well, don't do it over forests. Make sure that they're much higher than the rest of them. This one doesn't have the issue because the chance of you getting high enough to make it not contrast anymore, pretty low. We don't really have to account for Elytra users, but this one contrasts very quickly. So even from a high up structure nearby, you might run into issues. What I'm getting at is, make sure your lower ones aren't the same color as the ground. With your snowflake fundamentals down, it's now time to build some other snowflakes. Of course, we have all these different colors, and notice that they use, well, squares, 2x2s instead of 1x1s, and extra rings around them. And of course, you can use sea lanterns at any part. I made them connecting pieces here rather than completely encircled. And you can make them smaller and use squares there. Essentially, there are a lot of different ways to do this, and you'd be surprised what works and what doesn't. But from here, it's time to build a giant snowflake, mainly because it's something to round out the build. And this one's pretty simple. Make sure it's significantly larger than your current largest, so likely the purple or cyan ones. And then from there, if it's larger, go a little bit larger, and make sure it is 3 blocks thick with a plus-shaped center. You could go larger, but even then, that might backfire on you. So I'd recommend going this large for it. And then keep building outwards. Build some interesting designs, and remember, building on such a large scale gives you a lot more freedom. In here, we have ourselves the final Mega Snowflake. And this one is pretty simple to build despite its appearance. You can see I've combined aspects of all the other ones in order to make one giant one. And it's 3 blocks thick for a reason. Well, why do we need it? So that way we can do an outline. So choose another color, preferably a darker color. So if you did pink, do purple. If you did purple, well, I'm not entirely sure what to say. Maybe do blue. And if you did normal blue, maybe you're out of options. But anyways, you can either do it flat like that, or outline it with no corners like this. So sharp. I'm going to do it flat in order to give it a more festive, jolly design, although the sharp would be a little bit more realistic to an actual snowflake. But granted, we're building 8-sided snowflakes, so is realism really that necessary anymore? Once you're done with your outlines, check during the day to make sure there are no mistakes. Of course, take some pieces out if the outline becomes too full. You can see a bunch of holes in it in various parts, and if you're happy with it, then it's done. You can see this part might be a little complicated, but the rest of the build is relatively simple. You build them on the ground or in creative mode, and then you try them out in survival in the sky. And then you have a nice simple thing to put over pretty much any structure. Put it on the ceiling, walls, floor. If you have neither of those, you're probably playing 2D. And then you can enjoy these, since, of course, they're nice and lit up, and if need be, they can act as an emergency stopping point if you have an elytra, considering the thick outlines on them. So, try it out if you want to festivize your worlds. It's relatively cheap, and it's an interesting experience, especially with, the high up nature of this. So, be careful and make sure to get some slow falling and feather falling. And with that, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day, and if you're watching this the day of its release, 2 days, another video. Gearsaw out.